Hi, this is Daniel, and we're here for training on using the Fire and Disaster Manual. These are red binders that you'll find at each of the nurses' stations in each of the buildings. And for an internal disaster or a large external disaster, this is going to be important for especially all of our licensed nurses to understand how to use this manual when that time comes. It's going to be very stressful, so a good orientation is essential at this point, so when you need it, it's there for your reference. So we're going to divide this into three main sections. This is the first part. And the first part is basic orientation to the manual. So we start with the table of contents in the front, which will help get you where you need. The first section is for important phone numbers and contact information. The second is for fire, and then disasters, then utilities and supplies, and evacuation after that. And during this training, if you have a manual, please go through this with me, and you can always look in more detail later. The second and third sections of this, other tabs, are for forms. These forms are specifically for the EOC, which we'll talk about soon. So two sections of forms. The last part of the binder is an orange paper area for signage that you can put up for security, and we'll talk about that. So here we go in the main section. Sorry, also in the front you may find a little card with important contact information for the EOC, another quick reference form. So we're not going to go through everything in extreme detail, but this is a basic orientation. So for the first section, important phone numbers. There are multiple pages of phone numbers depending on who you would need to contact for the emergency. The first section is fire, police, local hospitals, poison control, ambulances, our fire alarm system. If you're having a fire alarm go off and the fire issue is taken care of, but you need to call the alarm company, here are contact numbers and a password. The Department of Health and Red Cross. The next page is for the Alameda County EOC. EOC stands for the Emergency Operations Center, and this is something that the county has prepared for a large-scale disaster that would affect maybe the whole county. So this is only an operation when this large-scale disaster occurs, as well as during practice sessions that about once or twice a year that the county officials will open up the center for practice. So these phone numbers, fax numbers, and email are only in operation if they activate the EOC. That would be, for instance, a large earthquake that did severe damage to a large part of the county. In that situation, we would probably be severely affected. We are sitting on the Hayward Fault here. And so what would happen is 911 would probably be inundated, maybe not even, so overwhelmed, not even helpful. So you would want to contact the EOC for communicating issues such as how you're doing, what kind of resources you need, can you accept patients for them, that the hospitals are overwhelmed. So that's where these sections, the form sections in the back, come into place. The first section is for the status report form. This is what the EOC would want to get from us, from one person at the facility, as to how many injuries, how many deaths, how are you doing with this disaster, and that would be faxed in. The second form are request forms. So if we ran out of medical supplies, we would, and we contacted the EOC, they could probably get those to us, but they'd want it most likely on this form. This is the standardized form, so you'd have to fill out your request on this form, fax it in to them. That is the EOC contact page. The next page is a yellow sheet for emergency and repair phone numbers. This is for our regular vendors, for instance, PG&E, our sprinkler people, our laboratory, our medical supplies, our oxygen people. If you have a problem with the liquid oxygen tank, the big one out in the parking lot, this tells you who to call. If you have a need for additional E-tanks, smaller tanks, there's a different phone number to call. If you have a plumbing issue, if the sewer is backed up, if it's a local issue, you call Amigo Plumbing. If it's a larger scale issue, you call San Leandro Public Works. So all those contact numbers are on this yellow page. The next page is for key staff. We of course need to let the administration and department heads know. This is the priority list as to who you would contact to make sure that that myself, the DON, and whatnot are contacted so we can come and support you. The next page is for social service resource. It's about 211. Dial 211. This is a 3-digit number that our county uses. This is actually an operational year-round, but would be especially important in a disaster for instance our employees and for family members of our residents. So this would be the place to call instead of 911 for information and assistance that's not of an emergency nature. So for instance, it says here location of emergency shelters. Let's say a family member of a patient or an employee has damage to their house. They need to know, where can I go for an emergency shelter? We can refer them to call 211 instead of figuring out where's the Red Cross or bothering 911 with that. How to find extra food and water. How to volunteer for help. 211 would be the place to go for all kinds of information for our employees and visitors in a large-scale disaster. That's the first section, important phone numbers. The next video will be for the next section, fires.